Hi, Discovery class. The sixth chapter of Joshua is a story of an ancient city. I want to tell you about it. There it stood, fortified. The flat plain north of the Dead Sea gave way to this huge, giant city, towering over the barren landscape. The stone walls of the city were 16 feet high and 7 feet wide. On the top of the wall was another wall built, and it stretched 8 more feet higher up in the air. Chariots used to ride all the way around the wall after dark just to keep the enemy away. Guard towers were placed every quarter mile for surveillance. Palm trees formed the thick forest 8 miles long and 3 miles wide, and they stood as a barrier on the east side of the city. The western wall was protected by a steep hill. Now I can hear you asking, well, what's the name of the city, Ron? I'm talking about the ancient city of Jericho. It's mentioned in the book of Joshua in the Old Hebrew Bible. It had never been penetrated. Circling the city were 2 walls, one inside the other, solid stone, totaling 40 feet in height. Who lived there? The Jericho's inhabitants were a group called the Canaanites. They were ferocious and they were very barbaric. They bragged about their safety behind those great stone walls. They could, because they had withstood every siege. No one had ever been their attacker, and the invaders never got in. But they were a horrible people. They were guilty of child sacrifice. According to Deuteronomy 12:13, they even burned their sons and daughters as sacrifices to their gods. They were ruthless tyrants. The early version I would call of Attila the Hun. Only this time, they're on the plains of Canaan. You wouldn't want to live there. Now I want you to watch and keep an eye on what happened to that mighty city called Jericho. There's a man named Joshua. He's the commander of an army called the Children of Israel. They just arrived from the land of Egypt because they were slaves there for 400 years. Now remember, they didn't have any battering rams. This is a big city walled. Nothing to pound those stones out or the walls down. They didn't possess even military uniforms for their soldiers. They were shepherds. They were businessmen, young and old, men and boys. They had never faced walls before, anything like this. The only instruments of war they had were swords, spears, and ram's horns. I'll read it for you. Chapter 6 of Joshua. Verse 1. Now, Jericho was tightly shut up because of the Israelites. No one went out and no one went in. Then the Lord said to Joshua, see, I have delivered Jericho into your hands, along with the king and all its fighting men. March around the city once with all your armed men. Do this for 6 days. Have 7 priests carry trumpets of ram's horns in front of the ark. And then on the 7th day, march around the city 7 times with the priests blowing the trumpets. And when you hear the sound of a long blast on those trumpets, have all the people give a loud shout. Then the walls of the city are going to collapse, and the people will go up, every man straight in. If you were one of Joshua's soldiers, and what I just read, Joshua had told his men, these soldiers trusted their commander. Way back in chapter 1, verse 11, he told them, "Go in to possess the land which the Lord your God is giving you to possess." The verb here, possess, means to occupy. In other words, drive out the inhabitants of Jericho and go in and possess what they've got. God didn't say to Joshua, "Take the city." God said, "Possess the city that you have received." I have taken the city, not you. That's the key sentence in this. I have taken the city. God promised them a victory before the battle even began. God still does that, you know. You and I, we face Jerichos every day in our life. Anger, bitterness, prejudice, insecurity, guilt. Your Jericho is really your attitude. It's a mindset that keeps you from joy, it keeps you from peace, it keeps you from contentment, and it even keeps you from rest, going to sleep. It's Jericho. It has walls. It stands between you and probably your glorious future. Because of that, your heart tells you, "I don't want Jericho. I'm not going to take its walls down. I want to remain back in the wilderness. I don't think I want to enter the promised land. Jericho blocks the way. How can I knock any walls down?" Well, listen, the walls have to come down. To live in the promised land, you've got to face Jericho. You have to drive out the tenants, and you have to possess their place. Joshua speaks to his men. Here's going to be our attack. Take up the ark of the covenant, and let the priests bear 7 trumpets of ram's horns before the ark of the Lord. Verse 6. Joshua commanded the soldiers to march before it and march behind it, blowing their trumpets continually as they walked around the city every day. "But all of you," said Joshua, "no talking. Quiet. I don't want any noise." Verse 10, "You shall not shout or make any noise with your voice or with your word or with your sword. I don't want anything to proceed out of your mouth until the day I say to you, shout." What do you think of that as a means of attack? Not your spear. I don't want your swords. I don't want any hand-to-hand combat. I want you to keep quiet. Not a word out of you. Just march. Priests, blow your horns. The rest of you keep silent. Not sure how many soldiers there were, class. Many scholars think there were as many as 40,000. Just watch. Quiet. I have a question for you. What are your chances, you think? What do you think your chances of winning over Jericho would be with what I just told you? Do you think this strategy is good warfare? Well, I ask you, does your Jericho frighten you? Do you want to turn back? Are you scared of your enemy? Everybody wants Jericho's walls brought to the ground. How's that going to happen? The symbol of God's presence in this march was the Ark of the Covenant. Joshua placed the Ark right in the center of the procession. Ram's horn. The Jewish people had 2 instruments. One was a silver trumpet. 2 was a ram's horn. Each horn, when it is blown, had a different purpose. The first one, the silver trumpet, it was used to call the people of Israel to assemble gather together. When you hear the trumpet blow, come, gather together. Numbers 10, verse 2. Make 2 trumpets of hammered silver and use them for calling the community together. Now, the second horn in this story is a horn of celebration. The battle has already been won. It was simply a reminder of God's sovereignty and his deliverance. When you hear the horn, you know we won. The soldiers were instructed to keep silent. Listen to the sound of the ram's horn. When it's blowing, God is speaking. Don't say a word. Quiet. The trumpets are speaking for you. On the walls, I can only imagine the reaction of these Canaanites. They mocked the Hebrews that first day. They laughed at them. On the second day, same thing. You cowards, come on and fight. They just marched. Quiet. Third day, same thing. They yell louder. Come on and fight. Silence. They just marched. Fourth day, their shouts became laughter. Look at those idiots. They're chicken. They don't want to fight. Fifth day, they came into heckling. Do you want to fight or don't you? I think on the last day, the 6th day, these soldiers brought their wives and kids to the wall, and they looked over at these 40,000 marchers, and they just giggled. It was the funniest thing they had ever seen. They're just showing off. They're not going to bother us. Do you know the devil does that with you? When you want to conquer your Jericho, he mocks you. He laughs at you. He lets little people tell you how stupid you were. You'll never win. The city belongs to me. You're not coming in. Here's what I want you to do when you're being laughed at. Verse 15, Joshua 6. Keep walking. Don't look back. This is going to be your day. And it's going to be a day you'll never forget. On the 7th day, they rose early, about the dawning of the day, and they marched around the city 7 times in the same manner. And the 7th time it happened, when the priests blew the trumpets, Joshua said to the people, okay, shout, for the Lord has given you the city. So the people shouted. And when the priests blew the trumpets, it happened. When the people heard the sound of the trumpet, and the people shouted with that great shout, the Bible says the walls fell down flat. And then the people took the city. Class, did you know that there's an earthquake coming? And it's coming to our world. Our Joshua, Jesus Christ, is coming back. And it's going to happen in our world. And he's going to give us a signal. There's going to be a loud trumpet blast. Just like that one. And he's going to take down the walls of every Jericho. And he's going to reclaim all that's his. And he's going to repel every devil. And he's going to take back every spoil that's been taken away from him. And he's going to do in Calgary, our city, and probably your city where you are, what he did in the land of Canaan. Jericho is coming down. Keep marching. Listen to the trumpet blast. In our modern day, it's amazing how God chooses his Joshuas. For 20 years, my wife and I lived on a little island out on the coast, a little place called Secret Cove. We lived up on the side of the mountain in a clearing overlooking the sea. My neighbors were bears, bobcats, eagles, and seals. Down the way was a little cottage owned by a man who was a controller in a big company over in the big city. He used to come from time to time and visit with his family, and he gave me the key, and I kept an eye on the place when he was away. One day when we were talking, he said, "I want to talk to you, Ron, about somebody we're trying to find and hire." "Oh?" "Yeah, we're looking for a new director for our mission." "Oh." Well, that neighbor I had was on the board of a large international Christian relief agency. It's a charity. It has offices all over the world, and it has a budget of $350 million. He told me they're looking for a new CEO. Their man had moved on, and they're looking for something to replace. And in his replacement, they got over 200 applications. And they interviewed them all. Here's the man that they chose to be their new Joshua, to help them fight their Jerichos. His name was Rich Stearns. He's going to become God's ram's horn to lead an army of hundreds of relief workers. Here's his schooling for the job. His parents weren't the best. His mother was okay. His dad was an alcoholic. They argued all the time. They had a little tiny house. His bedroom was right next to their bedroom, and at night when they were fighting all night, he had to put the pillow over his head just to keep the sound out. Mother was anxious, never had any money. He spent it all. In the 7th grade, he got catalogs back from the mail that he had sent out. He wanted to find out, where are the best Ivy League universities? Well, every Ivy League sent him a catalog. He studied them. When he graduated from high school, he had a scholarship, and he chose Cornell University. He went there and he graduated. From there, he went to a very famous business school to get his MBA. And when he was there, he got 2 things. He got the degree, but he also found his wife. Her name was Renee, and she was a Christian. And her being a Christian said, "If you're coming to live with me, you're going to become a Christian too." So she led him to the Lord. They married. At the age of 33, he became the CEO of the Parker Brothers, famous toy company. Do you know what they do? Well, they make Monopoly, the Monopoly game, puzzles, toys. Under every Christmas tree, I think, across America, you would find wrapped one of the Parker company's board games. Well, this man became the CEO of that group. At age 44, he moved on to become the CEO of the Lennox China Company. That was the CEO of the largest crystal glass factory in the States. Things were going really well. He bought a 5-acre Pennsylvania dream home with a little stable out in the country there in an acreage. He must have had it made. Secure job, beautiful wife, wealth, lovely family, eat, drink, and be merry. I think that's what he would have said. And then it happened. God spoke through his wife Renee and said, "I think there's something better for you. I think God's going to call you to the mission field." He said, "No, he won't. I'm happy doing this. I'll do this. I'll stay here." God said, "Listen to your wife. I want you to be a CEO for me." Stern said, "That's not me. I'm not a theologian. I'm better doing..." No. God said, "No. I want your gifts that you have founded this company with Parker Brothers and with the Lennox China Crystal. I want you to come and work for me." The Lord wanted to tell him that the ram's horn would be a master of professional formulas that he knows how to work. His ram's horn was going to be how to handle a budget. His ram's horn was going to be a vision. His ram's horn was going to be an organizational chart, how he could have a flow chart of how these people work and how they work together. You, Rich Stearns, are going to be the poor nation's answer to AIDS and other diseases that we don't have answers for, but I think if you go and do what I tell you to do, you might be able to do that for me. What God was simply telling him, your gifts I'm going to link with you to my ram's horn. Rich Stearns, he answered the call. He picked up the horn. He began to sound the trumpet. Everything fell into place. And over the next 6 years, the budget of World Vision jumped from $350 million to over $800 million. It became the largest relief organization in the world. God chose an underdog from a dysfunctional family to help other underdogs all over the world. He uses the foolish things of this world to confound the mighty. And he uses the things that are not to bring to naught the things that are. Rich Stearns saw the walls come down. You can too. Maybe this class is just simply pressing you to go pick up your horn. And when you have it in your hand, blow it. And when you do, don't be surprised if the ground shakes and the walls come down and your Jericho is flat and you can march in. That's enough for today. Thanks for joining my class. Will you come back next week? I'll be watching.